So for the next part of this lecture, we will be talking about the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands are these paired endocrine organs consisting of the cortex and medulla sitting on top of the of your bilateral kidneys. The adrenal cortex has 3 zones and they have corresponding hormones na sinesecrete nila. Your glucocorticoids are synthesized in the zona fasciculata and zona reticularis. Your mineralocorticoids are synthesized in the zona glomerulosa, while your sex steroids are being synthesized in the zona reticularis. In the adrenal medulla, it consists mostly of chromaffin cells, and they synthesize and secrete your catecholamines, especially your epinephrine. So, majority of the lesions that we'll be discussing are mostly found in the adrenal cortex. So, syempre, when we're talking about endocrine organs, it's about hyperfunction or hypofunction. So, first, we have your hyperadrenalism. The syndromes are due to overproduction of your adrenal cortex hormones. So, your main syndromes would be your clinical syndromes would be your Cushing syndrome, secondary to cortisol excess, your hyperaldosteronism causing aldosterone excess, and then your androgenital or adrenogenital or virilizing syndromes due to androgen excess. Now, for your Cushing syndrome, they are basically divided into 2. Kung ACTH dependent ba siya or ACTH independent. Okay? So, the Cushing syndrome are caused by conditions that produce elevated glucocorticoid levels, and it can be exogenous or endogenous in cause mo. So exogenous, ibig sabihin you are taking actively some glucocorticoids, so we will see that the effects of taking glucocorticoids in here. And then endogenous causes, like for example, you have neoplasms. Majority of the causes are due to the exogenous glucocorticoids causing iatrogenic Cushing syndrome. Kaya, very important dito ang lesson na kailangan hinay-hinay kayo sa pag-reseta ng steroids sa mga pasyente ninyo. So, as I mentioned kanina, hypercortisolism is either ACTH dependent or independent. For ACTH dependent lesions, you have your ACTH secreting adenomas. And this is your 60 to 70% of the cases of your endogenous hypercortisolism. The other name for this is your Cushing disease. Usually seen in females, young adults, females that are young adults. Okay. The major cause is your ACTH producing pituitary microadenoma. Other cases may have a macroadenoma and rarely corticotroph cell hyperplasia. So if you have a corticotroph cell hyperplasia, it can be primary or could be secondary from excessive stimulation of ACTH release by a hypothalamic corticotrophin releasing hormone or CRH producing tumor. Ang maging epekto sa adrenals mo is that it will develop nodular cortical hyperplasia, which we will see later. Now, ectopic ACTH can also be secreted by your non-pituitary tumors. They may be due to small cell carcinoma of the lung, carcinoid tumors, medullary carcinoma of the thyroid, and your PAN-NETs, which we have discussed earlier. The adrenal glands will undergo bilateral cortical hyperplasia, and that you will see yung itsura nila later. For ACTH independent Cushing syndrome, you can have primary cortical hyperplasia na either bilateral macronodular or micronodular ang hyperplasia mo. In macronodular adrenal hyperplasia, the nodules are more than 10 millimeters in diameter, so more than 1 cm, and for the familiar forms of this disease, it is associated with ARMC5 gene germline mutation. So the cortisol production in these tumors are regulated by hormones other than ACTH because of ectopic overexpression of the G protein coupled hormone receptors in the hyperplastic adrenocortical cells. The implicated hormones in here would include your GIP, LH, and your ADH. The mechanisms of how these receptors are overexpressed are unknown. Pero ang sinasabi nila is maybe due to epigenetic changes. Okay? The subset of these tumors arise from the setting of McCune-Albright syndrome, in which you have a germline mutation that activates GNAS. Yun yung driver mutation for McCune-Albright syndrome. For micronodular adrenal hyperplasia, these are less than 1 cm in size and arise mainly as part of primary pigmented nodular adrenocortical disease or as part of your Carney complex. Driver mutation is your mutations in the regulatory subunit of your CAMP-dependent protein kinase. So, your main lesions in your Cushing disease is in your pituitary and your adrenals. In the pituitary, what you would see is your crochyolin change. But it won't tell you kung saan nanggaling yung glucocorticoids mo. Kasi it can either be from endogenous or exogenous causes. So, yun lang sasabihin niya. So, normally, you will have a granular basophilic cytoplasm of ACTH-producing cells. So, in here, you will be able to see na very eosinophilic ang appearance niya in your crochyolin change. Okay? Ito, in A and D, ito yung pinapakita niya sa'yo. In B and C are just showing immunostains of ACTH and cytokeratin. Now, for adrenals, what you would see is cortical atrophy if it's due to exogenous glucocorticoids due to lack of stimulation of the zona fasciculata and zona reticularis. Pero, if it's due to ACTH-dependent Cushing syndrome, you may have diffuse hyperplasia. Okay? So, when you cut into your adrenal cortex, you will see yung entire cortex ng adrenal glands mo are enlarged. They can be as big as 30 grams and you will see na it's a very, it has a lipid poor zona reticularis with compact eosinophilic cells surrounded by outer zone of lipid-rich cells. So, ang outer zone mo, medyo yellowish yung appearance niyan. For macronodular and micronodular hyperplasia, as I mentioned kanina, yung size, ang isa yung as a way to differentiate it. On gross, isa is more than 10 millimeters, so more than 1 cm. Micronodular is less than 1 cm. Okay? You will see that later. And then, these may also be caused by adenomas or carcinomas. You will see that later, yung adrenocortical adenomas and carcinomas mo. And these are more common in women. So this one is an example of diffuse hyperplasia of the adrenal glands. As you can see over here, yung buong cortex mo is very thick compared to your medulla. And on microsections, ganito ang itsura niya. This one is micronodular adrenocortical hyperplasia. So it will be as you will see nodular appearance even on microscopic. And then when you go into the higher magnification, you will be able to see these small cells, but you may see some atypical cells in here. Pero please note that in general, endocrine organs have this what we call endocrine atypia. So pwede siyang malaki, and this is seen even in benign conditions. Normal ang endocrine atypia. So even in other endocrine organs, you will notice as well, mayroong pa isa-isang lumalaki. Kaya in endocrine pathology, mas importante sa amin kung meron kang METs as batayan kung yan ba ay cancer o hindi. O kaya merong capsular invasion o hindi. Now, clinical features, the Cushing syndrome develops slowly. The onset is subtle. Early stages, where patient will present with hypertension and weight gain. And ba nag-progress, hindi humihinto ang cortisol na component sa katawan mo, you will have a central pattern of adipose tissue deposition, mainly truncal obesity, moon fasces, and accumulation of fat in the posterior neck and back, also known as your buffalo hump. There may also be decreased muscle mass and proximal limb weakness. Excess glucocorticoids can also cause secondary diabetes. So we've been talking about other causes of diabetes. Ito yon. Especially kung exogenous intake yan, hindi ka humihinto. It may cause your patients may also get parang diabetes this way. Catabolic effects causes loss of collagen and resorption of bones, causing this cutaneous stray in the abdomen, which you will see later. The skin becomes thin, fragile, and easily bruised with poor wound healing. Sa bones, you may have osteoporosis, you may have increased risk of infections, mental disturbances, and in women, there may be hirsutism and menstrual abnormalities. So these are the clinical features that you would see. Ito yung common, yung what you call yung Cushingoid appearance, ganito siya. So, ito yung moon fascies, truncal obesity. Ito yung striae caused by poor wound healing. So, how do you diagnose Cushing syndrome or hypercortisolism? So, usually, yung pinapagagawa is a 24-hour urine-free cortisol concentration and it should be increased. And there is loss of normal diurnal pattern of cortisol secretion. So, normally, tumataas kasi siya sa umaga. So, yun yung kaya 24-hour urine, accumulated na yung binibilang. Pero minsan, we can do suppression tests para ma-diagnose ito, condition na to. Tapos, pag wala kang, kapag consistently mataas ka, yung patient has Cushing syndrome. Okay? Determining the cause of Cushing syndrome depends on the measurement of serum ACTH and dexamethasone suppression tests, as I mentioned earlier. Urinary steroid excretion is measured after giving dexamethasone. In pituitary Cushing, if it's due to the pituitary gland, your ACTH is elevated and there is no reduction of your urinary excretion of your 17-hydroxycorticosteroid. Kung high dose injected dexamethasone is given, the pituitary responds by reducing ACTH secretion. So, dapat ACTH mo babagsak. Kung mataas pa rin siya, ibig sabihin, pituitary ang cause mo. If there's ectopic ACTH secretion, there's an elevated level of ACTH, but secretion is insensitive to low or high doses of exogenous dexamethasone. Okay? So, dapat hindi nagre-react yung ACTH levels mo kapag nagbigay ka ng dexamethasone. If it's due to an adrenal tumor, ACTH level should be low due to intact feedback inhibition. So, dapat remember that ACTH is from the brain. So, kapag mataas ang levels ng cortisol mo due to an adrenal tumor, then dapat magre-respond si brain. Konti lang dapat ang ACTH na ipoproduce niya. Now, this time, let's talk about aldosteronism. Ibang part naman ng adrenal cortex ito. This is characterized, primary hyperaldosteronism is characterized by chronic excess aldosterone excretion. You may see hypertension and suppression of the renin-angiotensin system and decreased plasma renin. The causes would be bilateral idiopathic hyperaldosteronism, adrenocortical neoplasms, and familial hyperaldosteronism. So, remember na ang aldosterone, ang point niya is kailangan balansehin niya ang sodium ng katawan mo. So, for bilateral idiopathic hyperaldosteronism, this is the most common cause of this would have to be bilateral nodular hyperplasia, which we saw earlier. Pero kailangan is in the aldosterone secreting zona glomerulosa cells. Your patients tend to be older and the hypertension in these patients tend to be less severe. The molecular basis of this lesion meron, especially in familial hyperaldosteronism, there's a germline mutation in KCNJ5, seen only in a minority of patients. So, hindi pa talaga established kung ano parang ito lang yung so far na consistent na nakikita natin. Morphology, so you will be able to see diffuse and focal hyperplasia of cells that should resemble zona glomerulosa. The hyperplasia is wedge-shaped from periphery to the center of the gland. So, parang triangle-shaped ang ang hyperplasia mo. But you need to rule out adenoma in these cases. Kasi your adenoma will also be parang focal. Parang siyang focal hyperplasia pero this time capsular siya. So, if it's if it's due to adrenocortical neoplasms, this is part of a syndrome known as your Conn syndrome. So, yun yung definition kasi ng Conn syndrome. Primary hyperaldosteronism, secondary to a solitary aldosterone secreting adenoma. Usually occurs during the mid-adult life and more seen in females. A lot of these, around 50% harbor somatic mutations in KCNJ5. There are other somatic mutations pero hindi siya masyado emphasized. Mas konti ang may gantong, mas marami pa rin yung KCNJ5 mutations. So, morphology, they are usually small, solitary, and well-circumscribed lesions. Usually seen in the left adrenal gland, usually seen in females around 30 to 40 years old. It's often buried within the gland, so it may be difficult to detect using imaging. If you're able to get it naman, the gross would be bright yellow cut sections composed of lipid-laden cortical cells resembling fasciculata cells. Microscopic, again, we've mentioned this earlier, you may see some endocrine atypia. Medyo uniform in size, but there might be some pleomorphism seen. You may also be able to see some spironolactone bodies kasi the medications being given is spironolactone. So, if your patients are being given that medication, you may be able to see some eosinophilic laminated cytoplasmic inclusions. Now, if it's a familial type, medyo rare ito. There are 4 distinct subtypes, pero na-discuss lang talaga ni Robbins is FH1, which is glucocorticoid remediable aldosteronism. And the other subtypes are already quite rare. Now, for secondary hyperaldosteronism, the aldosterone release is secondary to activation of the renin-angiotensin system. So, to diagnose this, there has to be increased levels of your plasma renin, and it's encountered in the following clinical scenarios. There may be decreased renal perfusion in patients with arteriolar nephrosclerosis or renal artery sclerosis, arterial hypovolemia and edema, and for example, CHF, and pregnancy due to estrogen-induced increases in your plasma renin. How would they manifest? Basically, hypertension ang manifestation ng hyperaldosteronism mo. Mainly because aldosterone promotes sodium reabsorption. And when you reabsorb sodium, that would cause water reabsorption as well, and that would increase cardiac output, leading to increased blood pressure. Long-term effects would include cardiovascular compromise, increase in adverse events such as MI and stroke, and hypokalemia. So in which you know naman the effects ng hypokalemia by now. You may see some weakness, paresthesias, visual disturbances, and what you don't want would be tetany and your arrhythmias as well. So screening test would be kung meron kang elevated ratios of plasma aldosterone to plasma renin activity. To confirm it, do an aldosterone suppression test. Management, if it's an adenoma, you can do a surgical excision. If it's bilateral hyperplasia, you need to manage it medically. If it's secondary hyperaldosteronism, you need to treat the underlying cause. Now, the last set of adrenal cortical syndromes would be your androgenital syndromes. This is virilization or feminization caused by your primary gonadal or primary adrenal disorder. So this time, we're magko-concentrate tayo on the adrenal side ng virilization or feminization. In general, adrenal cortex secretes dihydroepiandrosterone and androstenedione, and that can be converted to testosterone in your peripheral tissues. So what happens in these cases is nagkakaroon, remember na your adrenals are producing 3 types of different hormones. And kapag na-block niya yung mechanism to the others, it may push your adrenals to produce androgens instead. So that is what we will see later in CAH. Now, there might be some, and aside from those blockades, syempre your neoplasms can also cause androgen excess as well. And if there are neoplasms, is more associated with yung virilization effects, meaning yung mas functioning na tumors mo are more likely to be carcinomas. So, the main lesion, the main pathology that we have to be discussing here is your congenital adrenal hyperplasia. These are from several autosomal recessive inherited metabolic errors characterized by a deficiency of a particular enzyme involved in the biosynthesis of cortisol. You will see an example of that later. And the steroid precursors are that accumulate now because nawalan ka ng enzyme, kakaroon ka ng accumulation ng precursor mo. So, it will be diverted to other pathways resulting to your androgen formation. And that causes your virilization. Okay? So, yun yung main pathology dito. In some enzyme defects, ang isang additional problem is it may also impair aldosterone secretion. So, meron kang hypoaldosteronism. And so, that adds salt wasting to your virilizing syndrome. So, the main example in here is your 21-hydroxylase deficiency or CAH21 hydroxylase deficiency. This is due to a mutation in CYP21A2 and is the most common genetic cause of your CAH at around 90% of cases. The syndromes include salt wasting syndrome, a simple virilizing androgenital syndrome without salt wasting, and then your non-classic adrenogenitalism. So as I mentioned kanina, kapag salt wasting syndrome ka, may kasama ka na rin na hypoaldosteronism na effect. Yun lang basically nun. Wala kang in the other, kasi ang nangyayari, wala kang synthesis ng mineralocorticoids. You will see that later. So, aside from, so at birth, what you would see in your patients would be salt wasting, hyponatremia, and hyperkalemia. And that could cause acidosis, hypotension, and cardiovascular collapse, leading to death. Now, for a simple virilizing androgenital syndrome, it will present as genital ambiguity. So, if your patients, kaya isa yan sa mga kailangang investigahan, if your patient has your, yung hindi masyadong develop ang kanilang sex organs at birth, ito ang isa na kanyang kailangan i-consider na condition. And then you have your non-classic adrenogenitalism na kung saan partial deficiency na siya to 21-hydroxylase. So, your patient has a later onset. So, they may have menstrual irregularities, hirsutism, and acne formation. So, ito yung this is a good diagram showing the main pathway kung paano napoproduce yung different cortical hormones, adrenal cortex hormones mo. And what you're seeing in 21-hydroxylase deficiency, may blockade ka dito. So if may blockade ka dito, wala kang formation ng cortisol and aldosterone, and mapupush siya to a virilizing state because elevated ang testosterone mo. Okay? Yun lang ang point niya. Ipupush niya lahat papunta dito. Now, there are other deficiencies as designated by 17 and to 11 over here. So, pwedeng yung pwedeng 11-hydroxylase ang block dito. So, it may decrease lang ang aldosterone mo, pero okay pa rin ang cortisol formation mo. Or pwedeng 17. So, ang problema, pag 17 na hydroxylase disorder, ang mangyayari, meron kang aldosterone formation, pero wala kang testosterone, wala ka ring cortisol in your patients. Ganun lang yun. Depende kung ano ang enzyme blockade na nangyari. So, morphology, the adrenals are hyperplastic na bilateral, and then it's 10 to 15 times their normal weight due to sustained elevation in ACTH. The adrenal cortex is thickened and nodular. Cut sections is brown due to lipid depletion. And in microscopic, you may be able to see a mixture of lipid-depleted cells and lipid-laden clear cells. Okay. In the anterior pituitary, there may be hyperplasia of the ACTH-producing cells. Kasi remember, ang nangyayari dito, intact si ACTH, so produce ng produce. So ang mangyayari, nagre-respond din naman si adrenals mo, so malaki din siya. Pero ang problema, wala kang pang-feedback inhibition doon. So, produce na ng produce si adrenals, kakapal siya. Ganun din si pituitary mo tuloy. Clinical features are determined by the specific enzyme deficiency. So, pwede ka, kapag salt wasting syndrome ka, you may be able to see some hypotension in circulatory collapse in your patients. Pero kung androgenic activity lang ang present, there is female masculinization. So, you will see some clitoral hypertrophy, pseudohermaphroditism, oligomenorrhea, hirsutism, and acne in post-pubertal females. And there may be enlargement of the external genitalia, oligospermia, and other evidence of your precocious puberty in your older males. Now, this condition should always be suspected in any neonate with ambiguous genitalia. As hindi mo ma-identify outright kung male or female ng pasyente mo upon birth isa ito sa dapat papasok sa differentials ninyo. Okay? So, how do you manage this? You need to treat it with exogenous corticosteroids that can also suppress the ACTH levels. Okay? If with salt wasting, you need to also give mineralocorticoid supplementation. Now, how about adrenocortical insufficiency? So, the main causes of this is primary adrenal disease or primary hypoaldosteronism and decreased stimulation of the adrenals due to ACTH deficiency. And there are 3 patterns. You can have an adrenal crisis or primary acute, Addison disease or primary chronic, or secondary adrenocortical insufficiency. In an adrenal crisis, how does an adrenal crisis happen? So the following are the clinical settings. It may be due to meron na siyang chronic adrenocortical insufficiency, tapos nagkaroon siya ng acute exacerbation. So you may need an immediate increase in steroid output to maintain homeostasis. If the patient is maintained on exogenous corticosteroids, the adrenal crisis happens due to rapid withdrawal of steroids. Kaya in pharmacology, if you review your pharmacology, the way you give your patient steroids is that unti-unti mong iakyat o unti-unti mo ding ita-taper off ang steroids mo in the end. Kasi ito ang ayaw mong mangyari sa adrenals mo. Magkaroon siya ng crisis. Okay? It's due to inability of adrenals to produce glucocorticoid hormones. So, kailangan i-taper off mo yung pagbigay mo ng steroids. Another clinical setting that you have to be worried about is massive adrenal hemorrhage. We will discuss this later, but essentially this is what you call your Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome. Okay? So in the newborns, this could happen due to prolonged and difficulty in delivery with trauma and hypoxia, in patients with prolonged anticoagulant therapy, and on post-surgical patients who develop DIC and hemorrhagic infarction of the adrenals. Okay? So, in Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, this is characterized by the following. There is overwhelming bacterial infection, usually by Neisseria meningitis, pero maraming other etiologic agents. There is rapidly progressive hypotension leading to shock, and there is DIC with widespread purpura in the skin, plus your massive bilateral adrenal hemorrhage. This can occur at any age, but it's more common in children, possibly due to direct bacterial seeding in your adrenals, small vessels, DIC, or endothelial dysfunction. Your adrenals are basically sacks of blood at this point in time, and if not managed ASAP, death can follow within a few hours. So this is what you can see in yung adrenals, hemorrhagic siya all over, and then this is a patient with diffuse purpuric rash with your Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome. Now, for primary chronic, or also known as Addison disease, this results from progressive destruction of your adrenal cortex. So, if at least 90% of the adrenal cortex has been compromised, you will see your clinical manifestations. So, how does this occur? One is due to autoimmune adrenalitis. So, yung adrenals mo is merong inflammation, autoimmune destruction because of secondary autoimmune destruction, seen in around 80 to 90% of cases. Okay? The antibodies are against mostly your steroidogenic enzymes. So, yun yung sinisira niya. And it has many forms. So, discussed in here is APS1 and APS2. In APS1, you have your autoimmune polyendocrinopathy, candidiasis, and ectodermal dystrophy characterized by your mucocutaneous candidiasis, skin abnormalities, dental enamel and nail abnormalities, and your organ-specific immune disorders, which are listed in here. APS2 is more prevalent than APS1. However, it does not have candidiasis, ectodermal dysplasia, autoimmune hyperparathyroidism. Okay, please note, there should be none of this. Wala ito. Hindi siya common, hindi siya seen in APS2. It's sa APS1 yan mostly. Other causes would be infections, especially from TB and fungi. So, a very prone dito would be your AIDS patients kasi they can have both. And then Addison's disease may also be caused by metastatic neoplasms involving the adrenals. More commonly, we see lung and breast metastasis. For genetic causes, we are seeing congenital adrenal hypoplasia and adrenoleukodystrophies kasama dito. How would they look like? For your primary autoimmune adrenalitis, you will have irregularly shrunken glands, but may be difficult to identify with the suprarenal adipose tissue. The cortex contains only scattered residual cortex cells, in a collapsed network of connective tissues, and you should be able to see lymphoid infiltrates. So, adrenalitis, o ibig sabihin, meron kang inflammation. So, naturally, you should see a lot of lymphoid infiltrates extending from the cortex extending to the medulla. Tapos, if you can identify the etiology such as TB, fungal disease, then you should be able to see their corresponding reactions as well. Clinical features, this begins insidiously. It does not come to attention until severely decreased na yung glucocorticoid and mineralocorticoid levels mo. In early Addison's, you will be able to see progressive weakness and easy fatigability. Pa nag-progress, you may see a lot of GI disturbances, hyperpigmentation ng skin due to high levels of opiomelanocortin, which is the precursor to both ACTH and melanocyte-stimulating hormones. You should be able to see potassium retention, sodium loss in your patients kapag nag-progress to further, and even hypoglycemia may occur in these cases. Remember that stressors such as your infection, trauma, and surgical procedures may cause your adrenal crisis. Acute adrenal crisis, ang manifestations niya will be intractable vomiting, abdominal pain, hypotension, coma, and vascular collapse, all leading to death. For secondary adrenocortical disease, this is any disorder of the hypothalamus and pituitary that reduces the output of ACTH. So it may be due to infection, cancers, irradiation, or infarctions, or prolonged administration of your exogenous glucocorticoids. Kaya, with exogenous glucocorticoids, ang general na kailangan yung tandaan is, if possible, do not give it on a prolonged time. And if you're going to stop giving glucocorticoids, hindi pwedeng abrupt. It has to be tapered down. Okay. In these patients, there is no hyperpigmentation in these kinds of patients. And this is characterized, the secondary disease is characterized by deficient cortisol and androgen output, but normal to near normal aldosterone synthesis. To diagnose this, there should be low levels of plasma ACTH with corresponding rise in cortisol levels in ACTH administration. Okay, so kanina pa natin mina-mention yung adrenocortical neoplasm. So let's discuss these now. Adenomas and carcinomas are equally common between children and adults, pero we see more carcinomas in children basically. Cortical neoplasms are mostly sporadic, but there can be part of a familial cancer syndrome such as your Li-Fraumeni and your Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. Functional adenomas may be associated with hyperaldosteronism and Cushing syndrome. Functional carcinomas usually seen in virilizing syndrome. So how would adenomas look like? They are clinically silent, usually incidental findings during autopsy or imaging. Gross, these lesions are well circumscribed, nodular lesions up to 2.5 cm in diameter. If it's a functional adenoma, the surrounding cortex may be atrophic as well. Cut sections may be yellow to yellow-brown depending on the lipid concentration ng tumor mo. Microscopic, you should be able to, these are mainly composed of cells similar to the adrenal cortex. The nuclei tend to be small but has a mild pleomorphism. As I mentioned kanina, this is what you call your endocrine atypia. Ang very important would be your mitotic activity for this. It's low, less than 5% only. And when you do your, for example, di mo alam kung native, kung nag-isip kayo ng metastasis, you may do SF1 and inhibit alpha stain. Magpo-positive siya for adrenocortical primaries. For carcinomas, these are quite rare with bimodal distribution. As I mentioned kanina, it is more likely to be functional associated with virilization. These are gross, largely invasive lesions, more than 20 cm in diameter, and can efface the native adrenal gland. When you do cut sections, there may be areas of necrosis, hemorrhage, and cystic changes. It has a very strong tendency to invade adrenal veins, the vena cava, and the lymphatics. Metastasis is quite common along the regional and periaortic nodes. And when you see it under the microscope, you should be able to see well-differentiated cells to bizarre monstrous cells and spindle cells. So, medyo varied ang appearance niya, actually. So, ang pinaka-importante is you do your Ki-67 testing in here. So, remember that Ki-67 measures the proliferative activity of the tumor. Pag mataas siya, it's more proliferative, more likely to have poor behavior. Other adrenal lesions are as follows. You have your adrenal cysts, myelolipoma, such as what you see over here, and an incidentaloma. Actually, hindi talaga pathology incidentaloma. Marami lang yan ang term na ginagamit kasi dumadami na ang mga adrenal neoplasms na na-detect by imaging for a different reason. So, incidental finding lang siya basically. Now, for adrenal medullas, they are basically composed of your chromaffin or neuroendocrine cells and the supporting sustentacular cells. It's a major source of your catecholamines in the body. And it's part of your paraganglion system. It includes the neuroendocrine cells in the extra-adrenal system of clusters and nodules. So, in different areas, you may be able to see this neuroendocrine cells. Kasi basta important, matandaan nyo is that in addition to the adrenal medulla, these dispersed neuroendocrine cells are part of your paraganglion system. The distribution of these extra-adrenal paraganglia are the brachiometric, intravagal, and aorta sympathetic. Okay? So, a very important disease talaga dito would have to be your pheochromocytoma and other neuroblastic tumors. In fact, in Robbins, ang dinidiscuss niya lang is pheochromocytoma. So, we're going to that now. Pheochromocytoma is a neoplasm composed of your chromaffin cells which synthesize and release catecholamines and some peptide hormones. Dito pumapasok yung rule of tens. 10% are extra-adrenal, 10% of the sporadic tumor are bilateral, 10% are malignant, 10% are not associated with hypertension. Previously, 10% is familiar, kasama siya sa rule of tens, pero it's not anymore because it's now known that around 25% of patients with pheochromocytoma harbor an oncogenic germline mutation. They are typically younger in presentation with bilateral tumors. Okay? So, yun ang kailangan yung matandaan sa rule of tens. Other familial syndromes that can have pheochromocytoma would be your von Hippel-Lindau syndrome, polycythemia paraganglioma syndrome, and germline mutations in the succinate dehydrogenase complex. Mostly we see this as part of Men's syndrome though. So, how would they look like? Grossly, they are small circumscribed lesions within the adrenal gland with large hemorrhagic masses. The weight can be as little as 100 grams to 4 kilos. The larger lesions are well demarcated by either connective tissue or compressed cortical or medullary tissue. Remnants of the adrenal gland may be seen in these cases. And like in this lesion, you will see that the cut surface is yellow, tan to reddish. Mayroong areas kasi of hemorrhages and necrosis. And when you put this tumor into a potassium dichromate solution, it turns to dark brown because of oxidation of stored catecholamines. And that is giving to the name of chromaffin na descriptor for your cells. Morphology. So the tumor is composed of clusters to polygonal to spindle-shaped chromaffin cells or chief cells surrounded by supporting sustentacular cells. So basically, they are arranged in these small nests like what you see over here. And that is what we call the Zellbalan pattern. Okay. Maganda dito, when you do your IHC, so when you do your IHC, you will see differentials if you use chromogranin and S100. The chromogranin should stain the chromaffin cells, pero the S100, like in this case, are highlighting the sustentacular cells. Okay. Now, if you check the cytoplasm of the individual cells, they have a finely granular appearance, and that is due to the catecholamines, and the nuclei are round to ovoid with stippled salt and pepper chromatin appearance. Okay. Yun yung usual na appearance for many neuroendocrine tumors. Okay. Determining malignancy in pheochromocytoma is difficult because there may be features favoring aggressive behavior like what you see over here, and yet wala siyang metastasis. Tapos minsan yung wala kang ganto, wala kang high number of mitosis, tumor necrosis, spindle cell morphology, sila naman ang malignant dahil meron silang metastasis. So, ano importante? If you're trying to determine if this is a benign or metastatic na pheochromocytoma, isa lang ang kailangan mong hanapin, metastasis. Okay? Kaya kailangan, imaging talaga ang kailangan dito. So, clinical features of pheochromocytoma, the main clinical feature is your hypertension and seen in 90% of patients. Pero the classic triad of headache, tachycardia, palpitations, and sweating is only seen in less than 25% of patients. Marami sa kanila will have paroxysmal episodes which are abrupt and precipitous elevation in your blood pressure. Okay? Doon napupunta yung classic triad mo. There may be also a sense of apprehension, chest, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, precipitated by emotional stress, exercise, changes in posture and palpation in the region of the tumor. And if it's urinary bladder paraganglioma, it can precipitate paroxysms during micturition. Meron nga kaming joke dito na lahat ng med students merong pheochromocytoma, especially before the exams. Kasi yun yung feeling, headache, tachycardia, palpitation, sweating. Lalo na pag oral exam, yan yon. Yung feeling na yung masama ang pakiramdam, yan kasama yan sa pheochromocytoma. Yung parang feeling mo may maling mangyayari. Ano yan, pati yan ng pheochromocytoma. Okay. So, syempre, what you can also see dito, yun yung effects ng blood pressure elevation. You may see it in these patients. Yun yung pwedeng ikamatay din nila. Aside from the aside from the, aside from the effects of the increased epinephrine mo. So, there may be catecholamine cardiomyopathy in some of the patients. So, aside from ventricular arrhythmias, you will be able to see some non-specific myocardial changes. Pero it may be due to either constriction of the myocardial blood vessels or due to direct catecholamine toxicity. So, how do you, ano yung pwede mong i-request to diagnose pheochromocytoma? You may be, check using your, check kung mataas ang levels ng VMA or vanillin-mandelic acid and your metanephrines. Pag mataas yan, think of your pheochromocytoma. How do you manage it? So first, you need to give adrenergic blocking agents before and during the OR to prevent a hypertensive crisis bago mo siya i-resect. So manage the hypertension first, then you resect it. So, now we've been discussing kapatid sa previous lecture nyo yung mga other neoplastic conditions of the endocrine system. We now will discuss MEN syndromes or multiple endocrine neoplasia syndromes. So these are a group of inherited diseases resulting in proliferative lesions of multiple endocrine organs. And they have distinct features compared to sporadic lesions. These tumors occur at a younger age, arise in multiple endocrine organs, can be multifocal even within the same organ, and the tumors may be preceded by a symptomatic stage of hyperplasia involving the cell of origin. So, for example, would be the C-cell hyperplasia in the thyroid adjacent to a medullary thyroid carcinoma. And these are mostly more aggressive and recur in a higher proportion of cases. So, MEN1, also known as Werner syndrome, importantly, ang neoplasms na nakikita natin dito mostly would be parathyroid due to hyperplasia or adenomas, pancreatic neoplasias such as your Zollinger-Ellison syndrome and your insulinomas, and their pituitary tumors, which usually is a prolactinoma. Okay? So, other lesions may also be present aside from these three. It can be gastrinomas, in the duodenum, carcinoid tumors, adrenocortical adenomas, and your lipomas. So, if you're going to check on a molecular basis, there is a germline mutation in the MEN1 tumor suppressor gene, which encodes the menin protein. Okay. And the dominant manifestations of MEN1 result from overproduced peptide hormones. So, basically, ang symptoms mo is a combination na of many tumors secreting their own hormones. So, yeah. In the WHO, these are the other findings that you can see in MEN1. So, it's a nice table to look at, pero importante, 3 Ps. parathyroid, pancreas, and your pituitary gland. In type 2, there are 3 conditions. Kasama dito si 2A, 2B, and for some reason, kasama dito si MEN4 according to Robbins. So, 2A, or Sippel syndrome, is due to germline gain-of-function mutations in the RET proto-oncogene. Your neoplasms in here would be your pheochromocytoma, medullary carcinoma of the thyroid with C-cell hyperplasia, and parathyroid hyperplasia. In 2B, it has a significant overlap with MEN2A. The molecular basis would be germline missense mutation leading to a single amino acid change in the RET gene seen in almost all cases. Now, the medullary carcinomas of the thyroid are more multifocal and more aggressive. So, if this is the presenting manifestation, there is a need to test for RET mutation ASAP. So, pag meron kang patient, ang ibig sabihin nito is, if you have a patient na diagnosed sa medullary carcinoma of the thyroid, the first thing you need to do is to check for the RET gene mutation. Kasi kapag yan nag-positive for, meron siyang MEN2B na familiar syndrome, babalik ang medullary thyroid CA ng pasyente mo. Other tumors, pheochromo, neuromas and ganglioneuromas. Your patient may have a marfanoid habitus, so meron kang lengthening of the extremities, and you need to do screening for family members in here. So, you may need to do, para if positive siya for the mutation, makakapag-prophylactic thyroidectomy ang pasyente mo. Much like how you do prophylactic mastectomy for patients with BRCA1 mutation. In MEN4, now this is a new entity just described within the last decade. Ang nito is phenotypically they are similar to MEN1, pero they have a germline CDKN1B mutation. Yun lang. Kaya wala na tayong discussion on your kung anong tumors na present. So that's for your multiple endocrine neoplasias. Na marami pa siya in the WHO, but we'll be concentrating on these ones. Now, last would be a comment on the pineal gland. Okay. The pineal gland is a minute pine cone-shaped organ weighing 100 to 180 milligrams. Ang principal secretory product niya kasi is melatonin. So, minsan, we can have functional tumors that secrete this. So, pineal gland pathology is a consideration. Now, actually, medyo weird ito kasi pineal glands can either be part ng endocrine or ng neuro na discussion. Pero nilagay nila dito kasi it's more of a hormonal na organ. The tumors arising from this gland are very, very rare. And they arise mostly from embryonic germ cells. So, usually, ang itsura nila is germinomas. Okay, yun yung itsura nila. And they are divided, the pathology is divided into mostly pineocytomas and pineoblastomas. Sobrang difficult in diagnosis to because you need to rule out a lot. And I've only encountered like one case ito. And the way we diagnose this is we were able to say na malignant lang siya only because mayroong metastasis. Yun lang. The patient was diagnosed with a pineocytoma several years ago. Bumalik lang siya. May nakuha. Nag-stain kami. We thought na ang primary niya is the pineal gland pa rin. And so, ibig sabihin, nag-convert na siya into metastasis. Ganun lang. It's very, very rare. You might not ever be able to see it in your lifetime as well. So, that ends my lecture on the second part of your endocrine organs. Handouts are in Moodle, and the video lectures will be available in Moodle as well. Thank you, and stay safe.